Right, so Pink Floyd founder, rock star, and epic nice bloke Roger Waters has been in the news a fair bit of late because apparently the rock opera he's been putting on for nigh on as long as I've been alive, The Wall, based on the album of the same name, came out just after my first birthday, is all of a sudden anti-Semitic in the eyes of basically right-wing shills for the Israeli state. And when it comes to leaping to the defense of right-wing weaponisers of anti-Jewish racism, you can guarantee Keir Starmer will be right there. But this time, he might have gone too far. The Wall storyline is based on Roger Waters' own life, and the character he portrays, Pink, is a satirical send-up of that. A depressed rock star whose father died in World War II, an oppressive mother growing up during the Blitz. But the part of the show that has got people after 44 years all of a sudden up in arms, the Waters must be a racist, is the part where Pink, in adulthood, having been injected with drugs, enters into a hallucination where he believes he's a fascist dictator, that the concert is now a neo-Nazi rally. The entire scene is one of taking the piss out of fascism. It is a satirical piece of work, and the character later puts himself on trial for feelings of guilt over what he dreamt. Why put such a thing into a show, though? It's all a play on Waters' own life, as I said. The guy hates the Nazis, and one significant reason for that is what they did to him, which was to deny him ever knowing his own father. His father was killed in the Battle of Anzio in 1944, 5 months after Roger Waters was born. The same battle, incidentally, that the father of his character Pink died in. Now, much of these anti-Semitism accusations coming now, whereas for 4 decades there's been no problem, stemmed from outrage in Frankfurt, Germany, where they tried to get his show cancelled on the basis that it was anti-Semitic. There were complaints that it was in bad taste due to the location at Festhalle, where thousands were rounded up and deported to concentration camps during World War II. There were issues surrounding the inflatable pig, which always forms part of this show. Each year it is bedecked with different imagery in order to make a political point. And in 2013, the pig sported the Star of David, hence accusations of anti-Semitism. But this falls flat because the pig also had numerous other religious symbols on it, religion and the hatred it can stoke up forming part of that year's theme. Waters won his case to perform, of course he did. It was ruled that the show did not glorify or identify with racist ideology and should be viewed as a work of art. Common sense prevailed. Sadly, it has given pro-Israeli Zionist types a bit of attack ground against Waters, who is also a lifelong defender of Palestinian rights. Oh, the thought of Corbynating Roger Waters, one of the most well-known critics of the apartheid regime in Israel globally, probably the world's most famous supporter of the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, is too much for some of this bunch to resist. For example, Waters was laid into for flashing up the name of Anne Frank at his concerts, a homage to her memory, her name often spoken in Waters' childhood home. In Waters' own words, a permanent reminder of what happens when fascism goes unchecked. But to pro-Israeli government types, they tried to paint this as him desecrating her memory. What will have had them up even more, I'm sure, given their overtly political machinations here, would be Waters also putting out the name Shireen Abu Akleh, the Palestinian journalist who, despite wearing a press jacket, got gunned down by Israeli forces last May. One outspoken critic of Waters quickly making his opinion known was the blue Tory turned red Tory Christian Wakeford. He put out a tweet saying Roger Waters has a long history of vile attacks against Jewish people. His recent shows in Berlin show why he should not be welcome in Manchester. Wakeford this week gushed about being photographed with Gene Simmons from Kiss, who has made Islamophobic comments, so it'll be interesting to see if he gets sanctioned for that as Jamie Driscoll has been for meeting Ken Loach, but I won't hold my breath. A backer of Wakeford's dishonest tweet, though, was Labour's Alex Sobel, who has been a major cheerleader for sending more weapons to Ukraine, despite Ukraine's Azov battalion actually being Nazis. Whoops, hey, Alex. But this is just scratching the surface, because if we're going to put the boot into proponents of pro-Palestinianism, then we're bound to come to the Board of Deputies of British Jews at some point. The BOD is a right-wing conservative, pro-Israel body purporting to represent all Jews, but they really don't, just the right-wing Zionist types, who, according to Asa Winstanley of the Electronic Intifada, have a close working relationship with the Embassy of Israel and their military spokespeople. So close ties to the Israeli state itself, then. That word British in Board of Deputies of British Jews, it seems to be doing some very heavy lifting, isn't it? That's what I think, anyway. Their president, Marie van der Zyl, wrote to politicians demanding they condemn Waters in the strongest terms on the basis that he is, like everyone else who breathes in the wrong direction around such people, anti-Semitic. And Keir Starmer couldn't jump fast enough. He wrote back to Marie van der Zyl, and of course the BOD had to publicly repost his response too, just so we all know he's playing the anti-Semitism game for right-wing likes again, that he's on their side now and always, Zionist without qualification, as he has confessed to being. He wrote back saying, "Dear Marie, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I found the examples listed in your letter of instances where Roger Waters has clearly espoused anti-Semitic views to his audiences highly disturbing. There is no place for anti-Semitism anywhere, at any time, and those who hide behind the excuse that artists in the entertainment industry should not be held to the same standards as others are utterly wrong. There should be no artistic license for discrimination and racism. The Labour Party stands with the Jewish community and fully condemns Roger Waters. Many people will think of Roger Waters as famous for being a member of one of the most important bands in history, but he is now more synonymous for spreading deeply troubling anti-Semitism, and that is why I believe this show should not be allowed to go ahead. Views like this should not be given a platform. You have my wholehearted support in this matter, and wherever I can lend my voice to impress how serious this is, I will." It makes you want to vomit, doesn't it? If the BOD tells Starmer to jump, he'll say how high. Cancel culture, many people complain of, but that's exactly what the BOD want, and Starmer is backing here, and will always do what they want him to. Zionist without qualification, his words, worth repeating again. Without qualification, so he will never refuse, in which case. They can ask anything of this man and he will obey, he will deliver, so put him in charge of the country, and who actually will be running it. Of course, supporters of Israel and the BOD might say, "I'm being anti-Semitic for claiming they control a politician." But when they come running, like Starmer does every time, as he has shown here, and Michael Gove did the same thing, incidentally, for the Tories, for balance, is very much how it looks. Starmer, in that letter, stated that Roger Waters has clearly espoused anti-Semitic views to his audiences. That's libelous. That's a big fat mistake on Starmer's part, who, as a lawyer, you would think would know better, against a man who went to court in Frankfurt to allow his show to play, so he's not afraid of a bit of legal action, by a politician calling for this concert to be cancelled here. And you can imagine what would happen if Waters took Starmer to court now for crying anti-Semitism and won, couldn't you? My God, the whole sorry charade would collapse like a house of cards. The phrase, "it was a scam," would have been proven in a court of law. You can just picture the headline after, can't you? Keir Starmer, as thick as a brick in the wall. It's Roger Waters today. It was Ken Loach as well this week. There will always be another target to justify this abject, unequivocal support for the Israeli regime under the guise of anti-Semitism. But what people like Waters rally against when they oppose fascism through their work, when they stand up for Palestine, when they promote BDS, is opposing a regime here and now in Israel, practicing apartheid and getting away with it, because anyone calling them out, they play the anti-Semitism card and accuse all their critics of being racists. Functionally, people trying to gag critics of what is happening in Palestine by Israel and the hoops they jump through the world over to suppress anybody criticizing them are really defending the treatment of Palestinians as less worthy and less human than others. That's racist. That's proper, genuine racism. That's what we should all be opposed to and shouldn't be afraid to be either. The theft of land from Palestinians because they can, that's racism. Demolishing homes or making Palestinians destroy their own homes to make way for Israelis, that's racism. Conflating all Jewish people with Israel is racism. Large numbers of Jewish people, I am certain, do not want to be associated with the behavior of that government. In fact, a lot of Israelis don't. Take an Israeli band called Echoes, for example. They are an Israeli Pink Floyd cover band, and guess what? They performed The Wall in Tel Aviv in 2020. Just in the last few days, a 2-year-old Palestinian child, Mohammed Al-Tamimi, was gunned down with his father by Israeli forces. A 2-year-old. Now the family are being told their home is going to be demolished. That is fucking racism. That is fucking sick. That is what those attacking Roger Waters, Ken Loach, Jamie Driscoll and more are guilty of supporting through their unquestioning support of the state committing those same atrocities. I really do hope Roger Waters decides to sue Starmer's arse off, because this has to stop. This narrative is so dangerous, it is failing so many people, and it is gagging free speech and freedom of expression. The thought of Keir Starmer becoming Prime Minister should terrify people, because he's not the guy who is really in charge, and those that are amongst the worst of humanity going. Solidarity to Roger Waters. He has done a brilliant no-holds-barred interview with Double Down News, which I'd encourage everyone to go and watch. I will link to it. And after you've liked, shared and subscribed to the channel to keep up to date on what the mainstream news are not straight with you over, because I will always be straight with you, especially on subject matters such as this, you can stick with the channel a bit more and watch my video covering the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh for just doing her job. And I'll see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.